The most expensive off-grid mistake is usually the first one. I often hear people voice concern about hauling water, building infrastructure, maybe a cabin, installing solar, all the different systems of an off-grid living situation. But the number one biggest mistake usually happens at the very beginning. And over the last 6 years, the biggest mistake that I've identified people often make is buying the land before ever considering the county. If you don't call the county up front and find out what you can and can't do, they often will even have a PDF that has several pages of rules and regulations, and it's pretty easy to flip through and have a pretty good understanding. And that's a really good solid foundation to start off on. And if you don't do that, it's pretty easy to find yourself down the road realizing that you made some pretty big mistakes. So most off-grid living channels really focus on the fantasy side of things, romanticizing it. I really have never seen anyone talk about the rules and the legality and the permitting and all of those different things, and that's why I do. And so it's pretty common for somebody to fall in love with a piece of land without fully understanding what they can and can't do, what the rules are. You know, how's the topography of that land going to help them or fight them? Can they get water there? Do they have access year round? What's the permitting process like? Are there any exemptions? You know, how tall can you build your buildings? How far do they need to be from the property line? Do you need to have a fence? Some places require a fence. There's just a lot of little things that if you fall in love with a piece of land, buy it, show up, and then you don't start to think about how to actually set up until after the fact, well, that's probably the most likely route to costly time and financial mistakes. And that's probably why you've heard me say start with the county, not the land. If you go right to the source, you don't have to look on forums. You don't have to just listen to what other people say, especially people who have never done it. Just go right to the source. Find out exactly what you can and can't do. And if you don't like what you can and can't do in that place, look in another location. You know, a lot of people think that, well, they aim to buy land 10 miles outside of where they already live. And that's probably another big mistake, is if you broaden your horizon to the entire United States, you're way more likely to find something affordable, way more likely to find a county that's friendly, and starting off on the right foot can make a huge difference. So something you might have noticed, imagine for a minute you want to become a mathematician. You don't need to go to college for that these days. You can get all the information necessary online. If you want to be a mechanic, great. I just rebuilt an engine on my farm truck for the first time in my life. And I educated myself online. The information is there and largely freely available. So most people don't need information. They need organized information with structure to make things much more clear and easy, all in one place. Rather than browsing the entire internet, you can get all of the information at once and in structure. And that's why I created my 4-step off-grid land system. There's 4 steps. It's pretty straightforward. Step 1 is to use the county directory. So I've listed roughly 300 counties across the United States that are more lenient than others. I don't have all of the counties because, you know, you got to start somewhere. And I also had criteria that needed to be met. So I put the friendliest counties I could find to start with. And you can find a county that's going to be friendly with you and allow you to do the things you want to do, rather than just moving somewhere and trying to wing it. Step 2 is to use my land locator tool. It's not like other land listing websites. Those websites are built on the backs of real estate agents that say, hey, this is what we have available and these are the ones we want to sell you. The system I created allows you to search multiple search engines at the same time using terminology that I used to find my land. You can also add keywords and whatnot. Someone the other day said they wanted to find a place that already has a home on it. So you could put different terminology in there, like has a home, you know, with a home, cabin, foundation. You know, there's other ways to search different keywords. And then you could even maybe put in $10,000 if you got a limit there. But you don't want to narrow everything down immediately and cancel out all the odds, you know. So search as broadly as you can first and then narrow it down from there. And step 3, you want to do due diligence. So I put together a checklist on the website. You can download my entire checklist and check it off as you go, but it's a due diligence checklist, and that way you know that you're not getting land that's a dud. And finally, use the path to build out your homestead. You can do it completely freely, or if you want it with more depth and structured and real clear, easy, all in one place, that's what the path is for. So the point is, I guess, you can absolutely piece all this information together freely. It's just going to take a lot of time, like it took me. It took me several years to build something out. I started with kind of a survival mentality, which is food, water, shelter, and then that evolved into shelter, water, food, power, and income. And I explained to you why in my system, and that's the part that's complicated, is you know, finding all the information, organizing it over time and all that. And I'm just going to give it to you all in one place. There's lots of resources on my website. You know, the county directory, the land locator, there's a water calculator, there's the checklist, there's blogs and library, and all the pillars for shelter, water, food, power, income. Pretty well everything I've learned is on the website. Probably the most important thing I can tell you is to slow down, take your time, so you don't make any big mistakes right out the gate. And if you want to check out my system, start with step 1 in my bio.